One morning, Chibiko woke up. He stretched, as usual. He pulled off his covers and got out of bed, as usual. He showered and cleaned himself up, as usual. He went to prepare breakfast, as usual. Now, I say as usual because Chibiko does indeed usually eat breakfast. He's only missed breakfast one time in the past year, and that was because he thought he saw a butterfly in his house, and by the time he had finished searching for it, it was already lunchtime. What is less usual, less recurring, is what Chibiko has for breakfast. Sometimes he has toast. Oftentimes, he has a bowl of cereal. There are also times where he might have waffles, bacon and eggs or porridge, yogurt, fresh fruit, or even fish and rice. This day, he decided to make pancakes. Chibiko got his pancake mix and eggs and milk and whisked them all together in a bowl. Then, he heated his pan, added some butter, and poured the goopy mixture in. He waited for his pancake to show bubbles and then, because he was feeling brave and quite clever, instead of using a spatula to flip it over, he picked up the frying pan and tossed his pancake in the air. 1, 2, 3. He counted while waiting to catch it again. 4, 5, 6. It was starting to occur to Chibiko that his pancake was taking a while to come down again. 7, 8, 9. Something had to be wrong. Chibiko looked up and... Oh no! His pancake was stuck to the ceiling! Chibiko tried jumping, but he couldn't get high enough to reach the pancake. Next, he tried standing on a chair, but the ceiling was simply too high. Chibiko's tummy rumbled. Whatever would he do? He was too small to get the pancake down again. Suddenly, he had an idea. He went to the closet and came back with a broom. Its handle was very long, and with it he was able to reach the roof. But he was very clumsy and kept on missing his pancake. Instead, he hit the roof with a tap, tap, tap. It seemed hopeless. But then Chibiko heard a thud. And then another. He had made the feet upstairs angry, and they were stomping to let him know. Thud. 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 That last thud was big, and Chibiko closed his eyes with surprise for just a second. When he opened them again, he saw his pancake flying down towards his face. Splat! The pancake landed perfectly on his face, and so Chibiko sucked it into his mouth with one big slurp. Well, he thought to himself, that's one way to eat breakfast. He would have to take another shower, but at least his breakfast had been delicious. It was a beautiful day, nice and warm and not a cloud in the blue sky. Actually, that's not quite right. It was clear and sunny, but there was at least a cloud in the sky. In fact, Chibiko could see a total of 3. Still, 3 clouds is pretty good. And these were friendly, fluffy white clouds. Chibiko stood out behind his house and watched them while enjoying the sunlight. After staring at them for a bit, he couldn't help but notice that they were forming together into something that looked a lot like an ice cream cone. Ice cream! Ice cream would be a perfect snack for a day as pleasant and warm as this one. Chibiko went inside and opened his freezer. To his disappointment, there was no ice cream left inside it. And so, he also checked in the closet, behind his television, and even inside a shoe. But there was no ice cream to be found. Never mind, he thought to himself. It's such a nice day. I'm sure that they're selling ice cream in the park. And it's a perfect day to take a walk. And so, Chibiko went out, locked the front door, and walked to Button Park. Sure enough, there was ice cream for sale at the park. Chibiko walked up to the cart. "Hello," said the ice cream salesperson. "What will you have today?" Chibiko stared at the list of flavors. It was really long, and thought out loud about all of the flavors that he might like on his cone. Ooh, chocolate, strawberry, mango, bubblegum, banana would be good, caramel swirl, double chocolate, melon mix, green tea, cheese, cookies and cream, passion fruit. Oh wow, I have to try the hamburger flavor, but also stewed apple, maple syrup, ooh, and crispy mint chip. "Here you go," he heard a voice say. Chibiko looked up at the salesperson. He hadn't realized that he had been speaking out loud the whole time, and now he had accidentally ordered 16 different flavored scoops of ice cream. "Thank you," he said nervously, and took the very tall ice cream cone. Chibiko's ice cream really was very tall, and he had to walk very carefully. At least it was a nice day to walk. The sun was out, the clouds were fluffy, and birds were chirping. A lot of birds, in fact. As he walked, Chibiko decided to count each one he saw fly by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, 10 already. Wait, no. 11, 12, 13. Almost home. 14. 15! Wow, thought Chibiko. 15 birds. He dug out his key, opened his door, and went through to his backyard to eat his ice cream. It was only then that he realized that he didn't have 16 flavors any longer. All he had was 1 scoop of chocolate ice cream. Oh well, he thought to himself, 16 scoops is too much for just me anyway. And so he enjoyed eating his scoop of chocolate ice cream. In the near distance, he could make out some slightly round-looking birds sitting in the tree beside his house. Chibiko came home with a large paper bag full of groceries. It was quite heavy, and he had had some trouble opening the front door. But he eventually got inside and went to the kitchen to unpack. This was the first time that he had been shopping in some time, and so he had bought a lot of food. He had milk and cheese, some bread, some pork and some chicken, a few snacks, and some vegetables. He packed everything away. "That's pretty lucky," he thought to himself as he put the last bag of candy in a cabinet. The bag was starting to tear open. A few more minutes and I might have lost everything. He then made himself a grilled cheese sandwich for dinner, brushed his teeth, and went to bed. "Chibiko!" a voice said. Chibiko groaned and turned his face into his pillow. "Chibiko!" the voice said again. Chibiko sat up and rubbed his eyes. Danny was in his bedroom. Chibiko really needed to get better about locking his door when he was home. "You won't believe it!" Danny's voice was almost shouting. Chibiko couldn't tell if his friend was excited or afraid. "Believe what?" Chibiko asked. "Follow me!" Danny said, and then rushed out of the bedroom. Chibiko got up and followed his friend, through the living room and to his front door. He couldn't believe his eyes. There was an enormous pumpkin in his front yard. "I could hear it growing when I was trying to sleep last night," Danny said. "Isn't it incredible? I wonder how it got here." Chibiko stood in thought. Jelly beans quite often appeared in his front yard, but a pumpkin? That was something new entirely. Just how did it get there? "Oh," Chibiko said as he suddenly realized something. "There was a small hole in my shopping bag yesterday. Maybe a small pumpkin or something fell out before I got inside?" "That makes sense," Danny said. "Pumpkins can be kind of weird and magical at this time of year. I wonder what we should do with this one. It looks delicious." Chibiko wasn't really sure if pumpkins were magic at any time of the year. But it was true that there was a very big one in his front yard right now. "I think it's a bit too big for us to eat it all," Chibiko began. "What if we turned it into a swimming pool?" Danny suggested. I don't think so," Chibiko replied. "What about a hot tub?" Danny said. "Wouldn't that basically be like taking a bath in pumpkin soup?" Chibiko said. "I guess so," Danny said. His voice sounded a little disappointed. "Why don't we just decorate it?" Chibiko said. "In fact, your body might be the perfect shape to measure the eyes with." Danny seemed to like this idea, and so they set about using him to measure and cut out some eyes on the giant pumpkin. It was a lot of fun, but all of the measuring and cutting was very hard work, and it was already starting to get dark by the time they were done. "I don't think we have time to cut out a proper mouth," Chibiko said. "It's getting late." "Don't worry," Daddy beamed and quickly ran off to his treehouse. Chibiko was curious about what Danny was doing, but he didn't have to wait long. Danny returned with a box of crayons. "I find it scary if we cut out a normal mouth," he said as he offered Chibiko a choice of color. "Let's just draw one in our own style." And so, Chibiko and Danny worked together to create a very large and very unique jack-o'-lantern. It wasn't scary, but it wouldn't have mattered. They were both exhausted and had fallen asleep before they could even eat dinner and get to their beds. Chibiko woke up. Waking up, of course, is a normal thing for Chibiko. He wakes up every morning, when the sun is shining and maybe some birds are singing. This time when he woke up, there was no sun, and he couldn't hear any birds either. It is possible that they were singing though. He just couldn't hear them. And the reason for this, at least as far as he could tell, was that the feet upstairs seemed to be watching action movies, and their sound was turned up very, very high. He tried closing his eyes and going back to sleep, but it was too loud. He tried covering his head with a pillow, but it was still too loud. And after a couple of minutes, he couldn't breathe properly. After about 30 minutes, he gave up on sleep and decided to have a midnight snack. It was all a bit strange, he thought to himself as he peered into the fridge. The feet upstairs were usually very considerate and only made loud noises if he had accidentally done something to upset them. Inside his fridge, he could see nothing much. There was half an apple, a stick of butter, and some fish that was starting to turn green. He decided that it probably wasn't safe to eat that. Also, none of this would make a good midnight snack. Chibiko wondered if any shops would be open, and if he could buy any chips or candy or chocolate. He opened his door, went outside, and then came straight back in. It was raining a lot. He got an umbrella and started to walk into town. It was windy as well as rainy, and Chibiko had to work hard just to go down the street. While walking, he decided to wonder if he would rather buy chips or chocolate. Chips were crunchy and came in many different flavors, but chocolate was sweet and creamy, and sometimes it had different fillings inside. His favorite was caramel. Suddenly, a huge gust of wind blew down the street. It was so strong that it caught Chibiko's umbrella. Chibiko held on tight, but the wind was very strong and it lifted him from the ground. He was flying. It was fun, but also very scary. That was a rustling sound, Chibiko thought. I was expecting a bang or a crash or maybe a splat. He held his breath, counted to 3, and slowly opened his eyes. When they were open, he saw Danny? Hi, Chibiko, Danny said. I was just about to have a midnight snack. Care to join me? Which would you prefer, chips or chocolates? The wind had blown so strong that it had carried Chibiko and his umbrella all the way to the top of Danny's tree. The storm is very loud, Danny said. I thought someone was watching an action movie right outside my window. You should come in before you get sick. Thank you, Chibiko said as he started to climb towards the door. He was very thankful that he had landed in a tree, and also that Danny was both safe and awake. But he still couldn't decide if he'd prefer chips or chocolates. One day, when he woke up, Chibiko's tummy was rumbling. "That's interesting," he thought. "I didn't know it did that. I must be pretty hungry." He got up and thought about what he wanted to eat as he took a shower. Pancakes, perhaps? Strangely, no, not pancakes. It was almost as if he was too hungry for pancakes. The reason for this became clear after he had dried himself and looked at a clock. It was almost lunchtime. Maybe other people ate pancakes for lunch or dinner or dessert, but for Chibiko, pancakes were for breakfast. He was having a lot of trouble deciding what he wanted to eat, and so he decided to call his friend Danny. "Hello," Danny said as he answered the phone. "Hi, Danny," Chibiko replied. "Do you have any good ideas about what I should eat for lunch?" Danny said. "The weather has been getting nice again recently. Maybe you should have something that you can eat outside." "That's it!" Chibiko exclaimed. "I'll have a barbecue. You can come over later too, if you'd like some." "That sounds good," Danny said. "I'm glad I could help." Chibiko hung up his phone and rushed down to the kitchen to see what he had in the fridge. He was in luck. He had pork chops and chicken drumsticks, sausages and liver that he could put on skewers, camel burgers, and even some steak. He piled everything onto a big plate and went outside to light his barbecue. He was about to put a couple of sausages on when a cucumber fell from the sky. "That's a bit strange," he thought. A potato flew down a couple of seconds later. Chibiko was confused. He had checked the weather forecast when getting the meat from the fridge, and it said that it would be mostly sunny. It said nothing about rain, and it certainly said nothing about raining vegetables. An ear of corn hit the ground just in front of Chibiko. "I suppose it would be very bad to waste this," Chibiko thought, and so he rushed inside and returned with a bowl. He stood there for a minute, but nothing happened. He waited for another. Still nothing. And then 5 minutes more, and still nothing fell from the sky. "This is getting silly," he thought to himself, and then, just as he was about to turn to put some chicken on the grill, a head of lettuce fell from the sky. Chibiko stretched out his arm and caught it. This time, there was only about a second before a carrot swiftly came flying down on his other side. He caught that too. This was followed by a turnip, a piece of broccoli, 3 onions, and what felt like 100 peas. Chibiko was starting to get a little sweaty as Danny walked into the yard. "Are you playing baseball too?" Danny asked when he saw the sweat on his friend's forehead. "Baseball?" Chibiko asked. "I saw the feet upstairs just now," Danny said. "They were on the roof, hitting vegetables with a bat." "Oh, that explains it," Chibiko said as he put the bowl down. It was quite full. "That seems naughty of them, but at least they must have just about run out of vegetables. Maybe I can start cooking for us now." "Look out!" Danny said. Too late. A tomato fell from the sky and landed perfectly on Chibiko's head. The juice dribbled down his face. "Are you okay?" Danny asked. Chibiko sucked the tomato juice into his mouth. "I'm okay," he said. "Although this normally happens with pancakes, not tomatoes." Fortunately for Chibiko and Danny, the tomato was the last thing to fall from the sky. They cooked their food together and enjoyed a barbecue that was much more healthy than it was originally going to be, even if they couldn't decide if a tomato was a vegetable or a fruit.